Galaxy 9.
Hello, welcome everybody to the Unmuted Podcast. And today, on our first episode airing on the Nightly News, we're going to be talking about the lasting effects of COVID-19 on students and the job market. I want to welcome my other hosts here, Brynet.
Hello.
And Nik.
Hello.
Welcome in, guys. So, first of all, can we just introduce the topic to our listeners to just let them know what's going on today?
Yeah, so the pandemic definitely affected everyone's lives, both those listening and us here. I think it's one of those things where even though it's easy to say it's pretty far behind us, you know, it started already 5 years ago, which is insane.
Yes, that is insane.
It's probably going to impact us for the rest of our lives, even in retrospect, and it's definitely going to be in the history books.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Brynet? What can you bring about this topic? How do you think pandemic affected your life?
The pandemic affected my life. I didn't have a prom. I didn't have a regular graduation, so
Really?
it was very disappointing.
Yeah, true.
Class of 2020.
Class of 2020, you graduated. You graduated the year the pandemic started.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got lucky.
That must have been hard. I want to start this whole discussion on first. We can talk about our personal impacts that the pandemic had on us, but like how it affected our daily lives, our mental health, maybe how it shifted routines daily around the world, and maybe how it caused social isolation almost. And just the long-term stress and anxiety many people might still feel today about it. So we can start with, I'm going to talk about personal impact of the pandemic on me personally. Pandemic started, I think, in my sophomore or junior year. And I think started the end of my freshman year, going to my sophomore year. So basically, I didn't have any in-person school for almost 2 years.
Yeah,
which was absolutely terrible, horrendous.
Yeah.
And even coming back, right? It was hard. We still had to wear masks, and I wear the little face shield things, but it was hard trying to get back into the motions of it because some people it was weird. Like you come back into school after COVID-19, and people have lost their social touch almost. No one wants to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Everyone's on their screens, right?
I luckily didn't have to come back to school.
Yeah, you didn't, but most of us did.
College.
Most of us didn't. It was hard. And it reminds me of an article I was reading one time that talked about, I think it was from Time, and it was, did the pandemic break our brains? And it just talked about how studies showed that COVID-19 may have caused brain inflammation and cognitive decline.
I believe it because...
You believe it?
Yeah, because when COVID hit, I was a sophomore, and I didn't get any really technology access until I was 18.
Oh, really?
So I was still a minor at the time, and I was very isolated at my house, and it kind of I wouldn't want to say it made me depressed or anything, but it definitely made me a lot more, bedridden, not really motivated to get up or do anything.
Yeah, that happened to a lot of people.
I had nowhere to be, and I had nothing to do. I'm fortunate that we're past that now. I have motivation in life to do things. But it definitely made me not think about, common sense topics because I don't need to be out in public talking to other people, really. And it made me really not focus on being a human being, which I'm so happy it's behind us, but it's definitely affected me in that sense.
It definitely made us rely more on our phones.
Phones? Yeah, 100%. And I want to say that probably schoolwork during that time period was very lacking, and there was probably a lot of online cheating because, kids didn't have to follow any rules. I mean, who's going to stop you from not coming to class?
I didn't even have to start doing schoolwork until the mid of April, and we let out early March. So I basically had a month off from then on, and then obviously April to late May, early June was only the rest of the year. So then after that, it was summertime, and I didn't really go back to full-time school until the second half of my junior year, and even then, it was an every other day schedule. It was so bad. It didn't really get back to what it actually is now with traditional school until I was about a senior.
Yeah, and I also want to say that article I was reading, it talked about how many people lose the ability to memorize things a little bit and concentrate, which I heavily relate to that because I have ADHD, and concentration was really hard being in class and just being in your house, sitting in your bed. I mean, I didn't really have the motivation to want to learn or want to pay attention, right? And that heavily impacted how people, approach things today. Say, well, why do I need to? I got through school in COVID online. Why do I still have to go to school in person?
Yeah.
And some people have that mindset what's the point of going back? We can just all do online. But we weren't really learning like that. I wasn't learning. My driver's ed class was during online schooling.
Me too.
And I didn't learn anything from that. It was terrible. No. Probably one of the most important classes for me. And I didn't really absorb any of that information.
Yeah, and all of my classes were only a half hour long because they were using the free version of Zoom. Yep. So it means that it was just a check-in. Okay, who's here? Okay, do this. Bye. It was not really learning at all. It was just read this and do this. And at the time, it was like, yay, this is fun. I barely have to do any work. But looking back, it's really harmful to both me and other kids that had to do the same thing, especially 100%. Like middle schoolers.
Yes, and the younger kids. Yeah. I feel for them.
Having the middle schoolers on the technology, too, getting them addicted young.
And they're like reliant on iPads and stuff now. Not all of them, of course. I don't want to stereotype. But I'd say the pandemic definitely made it way worse with people relying on the internet for their schooling.
100%. 100%. What about you, Brynet?
Yes, I see children, and they can't even spell.
They can't spell? Yeah, that's really bad, too.
I see middle schoolers that have trouble spelling basic words now or can't
spell.
Like put together normal sentences.
They can't
when
do
English is
math.
Their first language.
They'll
it's
use
bad.
their phones for everything.
For basic addition, subtraction stuff. It's awful. It's really disheartening to see that happening, and I hope that it can change eventually. But we are at such a disadvantage with how COVID affected everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh yes, 100%. I want to also talk about how COVID-19 personally for me took away a lot of my ability to socially interact with others. I remember after that I had to get back on my feet. I didn't even want to I didn't talk to people in school at all. I didn't get into any clubs until maybe a few months after we were first in school again. I joined the drama club, but before I didn't even want to do that. My parents had to force me to do something. I was like, I don't want to do anything, and it's like, what's the point? And they're like, if you don't get involved now, you're gonna regret it. This is your high school years.
I absolutely loved COVID.
You loved COVID?
It was a relief for me. Once I heard that we were going to be able to stay home and I didn't have to interact with anyone, oh my God.
Well, it's one of those things where at the time...
I was like, my prayers have been answered.
Your prayers. Yeah, well, everyone thought it was cool at the beginning.
Yeah, I thought it was
I can
really
play Fortnite
fun.
in class.
I thought it was great.
I never liked school. I did homeschool anyway in high school.
Oh, really? You did?
Yeah.
You homeschooled all through high school?
10th through 12th.
Oh, so COVID wasn't really different for you
It
at all,
really
then,
wasn't anything.
I thought it was entertaining at first because the concept was great, and especially as a kid where it's like, I don't have to do anything.
And I get off on Fridays or something.
Looking back in retrospect, it was really harmful, and I really wish I had that normal latter high school experience.
It was really bad, man. It was really... And it's worse for people Brynet, no offense, but they graduated during COVID. They didn't even get a graduation. Did you get a graduation ceremony?
Probably not.
We walked across the stage outside.
Okay.
So,
that's
with our masks.
That's fair.
With masks.
So, maybe if you're recording the graduation ceremony, you wouldn't even be able to tell who's who.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah,
that's bad. It is bad. It is bad.
Yeah, it is. I enjoyed the pandemic at the time. Looking back at it, it's definitely not something great, especially because I was in a lot of extracurricular stuff. I was in honor choir, and I loved doing theater, both musicals and plays and stuff. And it was over a year and a half until I got to do any of that again. So I was definitely a lot more... Like I say, I don't want to say I had depression, but I felt more sad and hopeless because I had nothing to do outside of just being at home, Yeah.
Circling back, actually, Nick, to our other point about middle school or high school or kids still in school right now, how do you think the pandemic affected them?
It made them a lot less socially intelligent. I don't want to downplay the intelligence of young kids, but I do want to say that lack of social interaction definitely made people a lot less able to communicate with people like you should as a human being.
So there needs to be a solution to this. Maybe offer some kindergarten reading classes.
Yeah.
That's what I say. They can't read. They can't spell.
Yeah, definitely. Kids in school right now. Wow. COVID-19 definitely impacted them in ways much worse than us. I mean, think about kids found out that they can just learn online and they can find all their answers online. All right, so what we talked about, how COVID really impacted, our daily lives and our mental health, our ability to communicate with others. We talked about the shift in our routines, our social awareness, all these things that really COVID really did impact our daily lives, corrupted us as human beings almost, right. I would say. That might be
corrupted our high school student.
Yeah, corrupted everything, and
the
also
point being,
the long-term stress.
And our job
high
search
school
and
affected
our
everybody.
Work.
Yes. And we'll be back with our other topic we were talking about, which would be how it impacted kids in high school right now. So we're going to go for a quick break right now.
Free in my mind, at least I've been trying.
of the pain that I find. Hi, everyone. You are listening to Unmuted Podcast with Nik, Brynet, and Noah.
And we're back with the Unmuted Podcast. Last time, before our break, we were talking about how high school students currently right now are being affected, or how the effects of COVID affected them currently right now. We kind of went into that, but we didn't really dive into it fully. So, Brynet, do you want to start a discussion on that a little bit?
I will. Just like some statistics we have right here, 56% of fourth graders were at grade level in math by 2023, which is down from 69% in 2019.
Which was right around before COVID and when it kind of did start happening.
So the fact that it went down 69% is just oddly strange that this is being overlooked.
Huge, massive number.
And pushed.
Yeah, I think what's worth mentioning is that all of us were in high school when COVID hit, but a lot of the people that are in high school now were in, I can't believe it's been this long, they were in late elementary school or early middle school at the time. Yeah. And I think that they missed out on a lot of important developmental learning at that time, because you really get your social cues and how to act in public in elementary school, because you're in that situation where you're surrounded by a bunch of kids your age, which then would impact how you behave in middle school, which is where you're still trying to figure yourself out, and high school where you're still doing that, but you're a little more figured out on who you are. So I think missing those important years and being stuck online really hurt development of these young kids. And I think because they had to rely on the internet so much, that now that they're in a high school public setting, the actual high school themselves are like relying on internet for assignments and events and stuff. And it's so hard because I can see why it's basically impossible for them to go back, but it really would benefit from them to not be focusing on technology so much. It really hurts developmental learning for children.
And you want to know the worst part about all of that is some low income or special needs students didn't have that help that they needed. Maybe if they were low income, they couldn't even afford to get on Zoom. How are they going to get their classes or their learning?
Yeah, another thing, I brought this up with my own family before. Yeah. We're not low income, but I can see the problem where when the schools are providing laptops and technology, that's fine, but they should be providing internet access at home if they're going to require forced 100%. Internet to be. And I know it sounds like, I guess asinine is the word, but that's the problem, is like you can't do an entirely online-based curriculum on a public school. Private school's one thing, college is one thing because we're paying to go here. But when it's when you're doing online school at what's supposed to be a public school, it's not fair to not provide internet access for those children.
It isn't fair at all. Some kids they're not gonna get their education they need, and some kids who were still learning their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s maybe while COVID hit, so they're losing those base general educational values. Yeah. They can't spell, they can't read, and then they go back into school and they're reading the book, the cat jumped over the lazy
really bad.
Dog. And this also ties into my next point, is that, and another article I was reading by the New York Post, that 64% of parents worry about their child's academic struggles, and 42% say they are more worried now than ever about their child's future because of COVID's impact on their learning.
I think
education.
Also, I don't want to just blame COVID on this, though. I think that a lot of teachers, I'm not going to call anyone out because I don't have an example necessarily, but a lot of teachers in the public school system have stopped trying as hard as they used to when they didn't have to rely on the internet to teach. I do, because a lot of them think, let me give this student an online assignment, and they have to trust that the student will read it. And I guess in one sense, that happened before with textbook work, but it was a lot easier to call someone out. But it's so much easier to cheat now, because if you're forced to rely on an online source, what's saying somebody can't use Google, or now especially ChatGPT or something?
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's made people lazier and just not try to be more intelligent. It didn't. That's the thing. I don't think it made people stupider. I think it made people stop trying to be smarter.
I hate to be that guy, but I'm going to kick it back to the old days. Back then, we didn't have computers, man.
No,
you wanted information, you had to go to the library.
I didn't get a computer in high school until 10th grade, which is ironically the year that COVID hit. So it was definitely luck, I guess.
But you haven't had a computer before then?
No. I mean, my family had one, but I never needed it for school. So that's what I'm saying. I had traditional schoolwork with paper assignments and stuff like that. And I had that whole freshman year to know that's what school is supposed to be. It may not be fun. It's not always fun for people, but that's how a student is going to retain information and learn. And what do you know? My freshman year was my best year in terms of grades and performance because I didn't rely on the internet.
Hey, Renee, what do you think about that, huh?
I agree with everything you guys are saying. That's why I'm just taking it all in.
You're taking it all? How do you think maybe COVID and all this online working, it just came to my mind, how do you think it impacted people's handwriting? or like handwriting skills.
It's so bad now.
Yeah.
It's awful.
It's very
It's like chicken
rare
scratch.
to walk into a classroom and see students writing. So
Well, everybody wants to type now because it's seen
it's
as
so
easier.
easy.
And I would say it was technically always seen as easier. When I was younger, you weren't allowed to bring a whole laptop to school. So, but now that it is, people are just typing. And I'm sure people act like they're typing notes and they're probably playing cool math games or something.
math games.
And I can't even imagine what
DOG.
it's like in public schools with kids just not listening at all.
yes. See,
I'm sure it's terrible.
Do you think handwritten skills are even still needed nowadays?
They are absolutely needed
of course
because
they
you need
are.
to be able to write in order to, especially for like what our majors are, which is communications. You're going to need to be good
Well,
enough
even
in
if
writing.
you go into the medical field, you got to be able to write.
Yes,
You're going to be writing down
writing-
a bunch of stuff.
I don't really think it really matters what field you're in. Writing is essential to the human being experience.
Yes,
Not to
true
sound
that.
philosophical on you, but it's just true.
Yeah.
That's how you express yourself.
I
through
think
writing.
it was like this was a relief for students and children, but it's time to wrap it up and realize that it's making like a
I definitely
bad
think the
impact
effects of it have
on
lasted-
education.
Yeah.
What do you think is like the shift in maybe school culture when in-person classes returned? What do you think? How do you think it shifted?
It wasn't really in person. That's the problem. You were there, but one, at least in my school, you were there every other day, and you didn't even have
Yeah.
Friday of
Well,
school.
I didn't even do the hybrid. I chose not to do that. It's just way too stressful. I decided.
We didn't have a choice at my
Yes.
school.
Oh, really?
I think it made people lazy,
Yes,
and now people are just looking for
because
more ways to be lazy.
I didn't
ways to
have
be
I didn't
lazy?
have my job yet because it was my sophomore and junior year. Not saying that people don't have jobs, but I didn't yet. And so all I would be was like, okay, I got to go to school for this day, and then I could just do nothing the next day. And it was like that every other day until the weekend, where it was like I had nothing to do, and homework wasn't like it is with college, where everything's due at the end of the week. It was just do it then and there for that assignment. And homework was barely assigned when I was doing that remote stuff because you weren't going to be there the next day.
It's really sad that
It's really sad.
students that were in school, maybe then and are in high school now, have to really catch up academically with their learning because they missed out on key aspects of learning. Maybe like, do you guys know RASE? I think it was race, or like that English acronym. I don't know what it is, but like it's like how to like critique an essay or how to read
Yeah,
or write an
I know what
essay.
you're talking
And
about.
some kids don't have those skills.
And I think another thing is it's honestly taken away a lot of the childhood innocence of like what it is to be a kid, because the reliance on these remote days, which if they were actual academic days, that'd be one thing, but they've proven they just don't work like a normal school day.
100%.
So when it's like this, it's so sad. Kids are never going to get to know what a snow day is ever again.
Oh, wow.
You know,
Yeah,
and
they won't
I
have
know
to-
that sounds immature because it's like, oh, I don't want to have to do school this day, but it's shown like that school that they're forced to do really isn't school. It's just wasting their own time. It's wasting everyone's time involved because they're not learning, they're not retaining information. They're just being told,
it's just busy
oh,
work.
you have to do this.
Yeah, it's
well,
just busy
you know
work.
what I learned as a kid, when I have to do something, use an agenda book, use a
Yeah.
schedule thing. You don't need to have a 30-minute Zoom meeting that lasts 4 hours total with all the classes.
And then they're just yapping, and you know what also really hurt is that kids never learned that asking for help is okay.
No.
Because like they couldn't
'Cause
even
they
ask
just-
their professors.
It's like that now, especially people are so much more introverted because they can just ask Google for answers. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. People don't have like the motivation to be able to ask people or confront people.
Well, we're gonna take a break, chat, guys, and we're gonna come back and talk about how COVID maybe impacted the job search since we're college students, and maybe some remote work trends. And stay tuned for the Unmuted podcast.
If I just get it right, I keep going on.
Hello, you're listening to the Unmuted Podcast with Nik, Brynet, and Noah. Stay tuned.
Weighing on me, trying to hold on.
Welcome back to Unmuted Podcast. Let's talk about changes in job search and remote work trends.
Let's talk about it, because I just have to say the current job market for me, and I have a friend who just graduated and is still actively struggling to find a job, even though I think he's very qualified. He has tons of certifications and things like that. The one thing he did miss out on is his internship, which is sad, but he's struggling to find a job in this current market, which is really bad.
Yes.
And I think another thing is that online resume turning in is bad, because your resume can just get brushed
Yes.
off. I
Yeah.
mean, it can when you're turning one in physically, but I think when you're turning one in physically, there's a more personable interaction.
It shows drive that you're willing to
Yes.
go to a place to give them your
Yes.
information.
Now you're just submitting a resume. You can't
Yep.
really. I mean, you can try to send that message through your cover letter, but you can't really say or like deliver to the employer, "Hey, I'm really, really devoted
Yeah.
to work here,"
Yeah.
and like body language and in-person interaction is a huge part of that.
Now, it's a little too soon for me to say because, like I said, outside of this podcast, I just now am starting my internship in about a month. But so I don't really know what the job search is going to be like for me. But I will say Central Penn itself has been very good with helping students get a job post-graduation.
100%,
but not every college or school, for that matter, is like that. You know, a lot of people don't choose to go to college after high school, and the job search has been miserable for them, including jobs that don't need a college degree. Even a lot of working, or even like a lot of fast food jobs, grocery store jobs, stuff that you think is basically a given to be hired for. They're just rejecting these people, but then people want to complain that nobody wants to work.
You know what the worst thing is? Like, it was hard to get a job at McDonald's.
Yes.
Now, like,
it's
I was
so
trying
much
to play for
more
McDonald's.
difficult. I think another thing that COVID changed a lot of was
Yes.
that it made so many different workplaces rely on kiosk ordering or like quick checkout at like Giant or
And those things
Walmart.
never work.
No, they're always broken.
Yeah,
You know what
it
isn't
sucks.
broken? A person that can take my order.
Yeah,
It's-
that isn't broken, that's for sure.
And I think the reliance, and it has to do definitely with like greedy corporations doing this, but it's affecting people in the job search. And the sad thing is, I just don't know what the long-term effect of that's going to be, because we should be using modern technology advancements like AI to enhance people's work ethic, and it should make people want to do more with their time and
Yes.
creativity. But instead, we're using it for stupid art prompts that don't even look good. We're using it for
Right.
AI-made music and voices and stuff.
and
That
those-
work should be going towards the hard work that nobody
Yeah.
wants to do, so that human beings can express themselves via art and
Yes.
work. And some people do like working. Like, they like
Yeah, I like
working-
being busy.
they like working hard on stuff that maybe someone else will find monotonous and boring. And I think that COVID made people's attention span so bad that people just either don't want to work, or people that try to find a job in this current climate just can't, because people don't want to hire them, because why would I rely on a person that I have to pay when I can rely on a robot?
Yeah,
Right.
You know,
it's
that
like a
reminded me.
clash now.
Yeah.
There's a clash of COVID impacted students and
Oh, yes.
COVID impacted employers, not employees, employers. And we have two different ways that we work, two different viewpoints.
Yep.
And it's just not clashing.
Yeah, and it's so hard. I know this has been stated to death even way before COVID, but it's so much more true now. It's so hard to find a decent job with a livable wage anymore. I'm fortunate enough that I don't need a livable wage right now, but I'm going to in a few months to a year, and it's so disheartening to see a lot of jobs that are hiring for either minimum wage or might as well be minimum wage. When the prices are increasing but the pay isn't, that's a problem.
Brynet, this reminds me of what Nick's talking about here. Reminds me of an article you told me that you read one time. It was from Reuters. I think it was called 5 Years On, the Economic Impact of COVID-19 Lingers. Can you tell me about some like facts you saw from that article? Because I remember you saying something about like the global government debt, but like what about it specifically? Yeah.
I would say the debt is due to a lot of AI work and
Just technology in general.
And pandemic
Yes.
spending. There was a lot of pandemic spending.
Yeah,
That's how
those
it tied into
stimulus
COVID.
checks and stuff like
Yes.
that.
Lots of
stimulus
spending.
checks. So we're basically making up for the COVID
Mm-hmm.
impact.
So not only is the
Maybe.
economy in shambles, right? The job market
Yes.
is too.
Well, I think this whole podcast has been kind of a downer, so I do want to look on the positive part of
Yes,
this,
yes,
is
yes.
that for the longest time, people really thought that remote work was going to be the future, and there's definitely a few jobs that are like that. But in general, I think the whole hybrid scheduling thing has definitely become the new normal compared to just entirely at home. And I think it's much healthier for people to have a physical workplace to go to. I know it sounds boring because, I got to get up, I got to go to work.
Not
but
for
it-
everyone.
Gets you in the
But
gets you in the mindset.
it gives you.
I would
you-
much rather work at home.
What?
But wait until you're
Yes.
working at home, you might get sick of it because
yeah, you're like, oh,
you
I'm
have
always
no
home.
work.
No.
Isn't the best part of working though is being excited to go home?
Yeah.
So
right?
if you're always at
at
home, that place will become negative to
yeah,
you.
you'll begin to dread your house because your house is where you work.
No.
What?
Well, I mean, I'm happy
You know
we
what
have
I'm saying?
differing opinions on this.
Of
It
course,
makes
of
good
course.
variety. But the crazy thing is the impacts of the pandemic making people work remotely and stuff. It's still being felt to this day. Like I said, I'm happy that a lot of people are looking to go back full time or half time, part time for half remote, half home, like hybrid. I mean, my dad, I can't say what he does because it's classified, but he has a government job. He only
cool.
went back to the office full time about 2 weeks ago. And we're 5 years on from COVID, and he was forced to work from home for that long. So it's insane. He's only just now going back to his normal office job. So the effects of it, and that's like at the highest government level. So what I'm saying is the effects of this impact on people is still being felt today. I'm happy that it's changing because I personally do not want to work from home. It sounds amazing, but then I realize,
don't wanna
I would
go,
be so
man.
lazy. I would not get any work
I think
done.
going to the workplace is also you get to interact with your coworkers.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
you wouldn't get to interact with your coworkers if you're at home. Maybe you'll talk to them on an online meeting every once in a while, but coworker
I
relationships.
don't like interacting with my coworkers.
What?
Well, interacting with people is like a natural human
some
thing. You
people's
got to do
coworkers,
it.
Like
And
some people meet their
Sometimes
coworkers, right?
when they're good.
Humans are always developing, though, and I think a part I made in the previous segment about
Yeah.
students and like children needing those social interactions, adults need it just as much, if not more, because
Mm-hmm.
being a young adult is like one of the loneliest times in a person's life.
It's hard making a best friend when you're older.
Yes.
Right? Because
Or
some
keeping
people already
one.
have those relationships built up.
So I think that we're finally moving on from entirely remote, staying at home mindset is a great thing.
100% a great thing. Reminds me of we're talking about the job market right now,
Yep.
and I read an article from MarketWatch that talked about how the current job market is exhibiting like a robust wage growth, but low unemployment and high demand for technology, like reminiscent of the 1990s .com era. That's what they're
Yeah.
saying the current job market is like.
What's
the
insane
.com
to
era.
me is that all these people are struggling to find jobs, but the actual market's as competitive as ever, if not more than it's
Yes.
ever been.
Yes, that's
which
the
is a
problem.
good thing that it's competitive because it means people want to work, but also who is hiring these people? Because I don't see anyone with a job.
Yeah.
Everyone's struggling.
It's like everything is saying we have a healthy job market, but then there's challenges like worker shortages and uneven job
Yep,
distribution.
and you
right?
can't not say that poverty has gotten so much worse since the pandemic, and it's only continuing to get worse because the minimum wage is at the same number, but the prices aren't. I mean, just the other day in one of my classes, my professor said how he spent over $10 on eggs,
Eggs, yeah, it's pretty
and
bad.
so. But if you're only getting paid $7.25 an hour, that's more than an hour of your work. It's
Yeah.
insane
My whole day just goes to my eggs.
for eggs.
That's why I work at a farmy store, kind of, and everyone's coming in to buy chickens now. Everyone's trying to buy chicks.
Yeah,
Everyone
my
wants
friends have
chicks.
chickens because it's
Yeah.
so much cheaper in the long run. And then
Yeah.
later on, it sounds morbid, but when the chickens stop laying eggs, they can have chicken for dinner.
Chicken
It's
nuggets. Of
terrible,
course.
but it's how the human
it's
cycle
morbid,
works.
but it's true. I mean, that's the life cycle.
Yes.
Animals eat animals.
It's just a cheaper mindset to have something that lays eggs and stuff. And I think in the end, that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate because it should not be that hard for people to just have basic necessities like eggs and milk and butter.
I want to kind of tie everything we said together because we talked about the job market just now. We talked about how it impacts high school students, like who are currently in high school, how COVID impacted them, and how COVID impacted us personally.
I think all three of these kind of have to do with how they affected us too.
Yes, it all affects. We're in college. We're looking for jobs. We were in high school,
Yeah.
and
During the
COVID
pandemic.
yeah, and COVID impacted all of us personally in a way that might have changed us forever. I know it changed me forever. I was in a Great Depression during COVID.
Yeah.
I was pretty sad. Now I'm not sad anymore.
Well, that's
but-
good.
Yeah, but I just want to say that COVID-19 was probably one of the worst things that happened to the world ever in a very long time.
I'm really grateful it happened, though. It definitely gave me, in like a weird, morbid kind of way.
Character development?
It gave me a lot of time to think to myself and like reflect on who I was and how I was behaving towards other people. Would I ever want it to happen again? Absolutely
don't
not.
think
I
we-
wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Wait, I don't think we got to touch on the point of
What was that?
who actually followed the COVID rules.
What do you mean? Who followed the rules?
So, mask on.
Well,
Mask
I was
off.
never outside.
they
so I
encouraged
didn't
you
really-
not to go to overly crowded places.
yeah.
I never really went outside, so I didn't really have to follow the rules.
That was also
'cause
a
I
really
was-
bad thing. Now it caused a lot of people to fearmonger too. Everyone's afraid of
Exactly.
everything now, which also
Yeah.
Right.
hurts. And
During
sucks.
COVID, I was at the beach.
You were at the beach. All right. Well, I want to ask some final thoughts. How do you think COVID affected us? Just like maybe a little sentence, your statement. Do you think the effects are temporary or will they last for years?
Oh, they're forever for this generation. I don't
Oh,
think.
really?
I think the only generation that's not going to have any effect from COVID is going to be the recently born Gen Alpha.
What about you, Brynet? Temporary, or you think it's going to last for years? The effects of COVID.
Okay, I think that it's temporary.
Yeah.
Really?
I think it's temporary too. I think we can all grow out of it. I think over time we will adapt and evolve and grow past it. And I think that's going to be it for our Unmuted podcast. So thank you everyone for listening. This
Thanks
has
for
been
listening to this first episode.
yes. This has
Thank
been
you.
Noah
Brynet.
and
Nick.
Yeah.
Thank
See you next time.
Do not disturb. Please don't disturb me. No, please don't disturb me. Protecting my own energy.